Has anybody else picked up in the way that the 49ers are talking about, or people that cover the 49ers are talking about this team, and how that has changed from just a few short weeks ago? If you remember, during the final end of season press conference, Kyle Shanahan talked about how they had never gone all in before and that this would be the offseason that they do it. And then Robert Saleh gets hired. Everybody on the team is talking about how Robert Saleh wants to have Dre Greenlaw back. You hear beat reporters talking about how Myles Garrett makes a ton of sense for the 49ers and that they will be going all in this year. That was the conversation up until about a week ago. But as of late, all of that has changed. Matt Barrows has talked about how the 49ers will likely not pursue Dre Greenlaw or Talanoa Hufanga. And then also, we've heard that Matt Mayoko has come out and said that he doesn't believe that going after Myles Garrett makes any sense for this team and where they are at. And it makes you wonder, what has changed? Is this really the team's thoughts? I got to imagine that it is. So, what have they looked at? And has it changed? I don't know for sure, but it sure does seem as if this team is headed in a direction that is much closer to lining up with what I've been trying to say since before the trade deadline this last season, and saying that the 49ers aren't close to winning a Super Bowl and it is time to retool. If you're going to have Brock Purdy on this team long term, you've got to build a team that can long term sustain success, get younger, get cheaper, and kind of retool this thing on the fly. So, what could the 49ers have looked at over the last couple weeks that may have changed their mind? Well, I think it's pretty easy.
This is where I pause the video to let you know about our friends over at Underdog. Just because the NFL season has stopped does not mean the fun stops over at Underdog. You've got the NBA season. You can still do your more or lesses. You can do fantasy, whatever it is that you enjoy. And if you use promo code LSS to sign up, you will still get your deposit match of up to $1,000 at the 50%. Links in the description. Showing Underdog love is showing love to the channel. Appreciate you, Underdog, for being a great sponsor all year long.
Let's go to the 2023 season. This is the last time that the 49ers were in the Super Bowl. Obviously, they had the down year this year, but let's look at some key players that were on that roster making big time impacts and where they are at now. Well, Eric Armstead, no longer with the team. He joined the Jacksonville Jaguars last year. Javon Hargrave, I know he didn't live up to expectations, but he was supposed to be a huge part of this team. There was a lot of money poured into him. And even though he didn't live up to expectations, he still was a pretty decent player. So Javon Hargrave now gone. Deebo Samuel now looks like he's on his way out. Dre Greenlaw looks like he's on his way out. Talanoa Hufanga. Since that time, players that are still on this roster but are coming off of injury and are now 2 years older. Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams. We're talking about a lot of really, really good players. I didn't even mention Charvarius Ward, who seemingly is going to be gone as well. Now, since then, they have done a good job and they have drafted some players that are hopefully going to help out in the future. You know, Ricky Pearsall, maybe he can make up for the Deebo Samuel loss or the regression potentially that we're going to get from Brandon Ayuk based off of 2 years ago and now coming off of an injury. Maybe D Winters can step in for Dre Greenlaw, or they'll draft somebody else. But either way, we're talking about massive, massive players that were big contributors to that Super Bowl season. That's a lot of talent to lose and try to replace in just 2 off seasons. And not only that, not only do they have to replace it, but they have to improve. Remember, that team didn't win a Super Bowl. It got to the Super Bowl, was close, but did not win. Well, essentially, a Chiefs team that was pretty similar to the year prior just went to the Super Bowl and got mopped by an even better Eagles team. So the gap to close is pretty big, on top of trying to make up for all of those big names that are no longer on this team. It's a lot to do. And I really hope that this change that we've heard from the Matt Barrows, Tim Kawakami, uh, Matt Mayoko, the guys that are really plugged in, the way that they are talking about this thing almost seems as if the 49ers have figured out where their feet currently are, where they stand, and hopefully they've smartened up. Because spending big time money in 2025 does not necessarily help you win in 2026, 2027, and beyond. This team still has a lot of talent, but it does need a bit of a retool. And I don't believe that can be done in one off season. So this whole going all in 2025 never made any sense to me. And maybe, just maybe, the San Francisco 49ers are finally realizing that themselves. And if they are, man, kudos to them because that is the right move. You tell me what your thoughts are. Do you feel like the 49ers are maybe playing coy or they feel like the team as is good enough and they can just add a few pieces through the draft? Not quite sure, but I would love to hear your thoughts. And do you agree with me? Do you feel like this team is further away from a Super Bowl than what I believe that they are, and that it is going to take a couple of off seasons? Or do you believe that they can make the necessary moves in one off season to be true Super Bowl contenders, not playoffs, Super Bowl contenders? I'm curious to see what your thoughts are in the comment section.